Hey guys, I want to do a quick review of Fear Street Part 1, 1994. Just came out to stream on Netflix recently. It's the first movie in a trilogy of movies directed by Lee Janiak. So this movie kind of feels like it was made for me. I did grow up on young adult thrillers. I read hundreds of these Fear Street books growing up. R.L. Stine seemed to come out with one every single month. It was a really grueling pace for him. Um, and they were kind of like the books that were, they were kind of like eating candy. They weren't very substantial. They were really quick reads, but they were also a lot of fun. It was great to have one every month. So this movie actually starts out in a B. Dalton, where I would buy these teen thrillers back in the 90s when I was a teenager myself. And the opening scene was the crown jewel of the movie. It was a really great scene, actually. Maya Hawke from Stranger Things fame was the actress in the scene who is kind of, spoiler, killed off in kind of a scream type of kill at the beginning. Very 90s. Obviously takes place in a mall, Shadyside Mall. You see like a kind of a Spencer's type store. Obviously, B. Dalton. You got to see the retro Fear Street covers like on the shelves, which is kind of cool. One of my favorite series growing up from the Fear Street saga was the Cheerleaders. So Cheerleaders, the First Evil was a book that was on the shelf with that great cover with a skull and a pom-pom. And she actually used it as a shield at one point, which is kind of awesome to see, stopping a knife from impaling her at one point. But yeah, the opening scene was pretty fantastic. Great lighting, great chase scene, and the killer had like this great look with the skull mask. And the other killers that come into it later actually looked pretty cool too. A little generic. I mean, the kind of camp killer had like a bag over his head, which is, kind of like Jason in Friday the 13th Part 2. And then there was this like ghost like chick who had a razor blade. She was kind of freaky, but nothing we haven't seen before really, but they were still really cool visuals nonetheless. But I love the Easter eggs in this. The Good family was mentioned, which are from the books as well. The whole thing had, it was very much made for somebody like me who grew up in the 90s. It was very, it had the music. Sophie B. Hawkins, too much music sometimes. Sophie B. Hawkins' Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover was one of my favorite songs. That was in it for 15 seconds before they cut to another song, for 15 seconds before they cut to another song. So, it was a little much. They kind of like, really put it in your face that it was a 90s movie. But, I'm kind of okay with that. Unfortunately, the script was really messy. The movie was kind of all over the place. They kept driving from location to location. I think they thought the script was a little more clever than it actually was. Like, yeah, we've seen, killers get destroyed before and then kind of come back together in some kind of a supernatural force. It was a little generic, unfortunately. It's also not a self-contained story. It does continue into the next movies as an overarching theme with a witch that's kind of like trying to carry out her vengeance against people. And we really didn't get to see any of that. That's probably going to be in the third movie in the trilogy that takes place in 1666, which makes sense. So I think that kind of, made this not as strong of a movie just because it wasn't a story in itself. Yeah, but that script going all over the place, it just kind of like undercut the tension throughout, unfortunately. The acting wasn't the greatest. Maya Hawke from Stranger Things, again, in that opening scene was the standout. She was fantastic. That whole first scene is fantastic. But otherwise, the acting was pretty flat. The characters were pretty flat. Yeah, it was just a little disappointing. It was kind of like, it kind of fit in with those movies like Urban Legend. I Know What You Did Last Summer from the 90s. Not quite as good, though. So, disappointment, I'd probably give it like 2 out of 5 stars. Yeah, so that's my review of Fear Street Part 1, 1994. Hopefully the next 2 movies will, kind of make up for what kind of lacked in this one. There was a lot of potential in it, but unfortunately it just didn't quite meet up to it.